Donald Trump just will not stop with the tariffs. No matter how many people who know more than he does explain to him, this isn't going to work. It's not going to bring manufacturing back over here because, as we've discussed, not only do we live in a world trade economy where, parts get made here, there, and everywhere and shipped all over the place to cut costs, not just for where the parts are made, but the labor costs. But also, in order to bring manufacturing back to the United States, we would have to invest hundreds of billions of dollars into the economy, into manufacturing, into domestic production. But corporate America has no interest in doing that. And even outside of corporate America itself, the entire corporate world structure is set up for world trade. So Donald Trump, he's talking about putting up to 250% tariffs on pharmaceuticals made overseas, as well as threatening India with 50% tariffs. And we already have gone over the jobs numbers. Here, let me pull this up. But we already discussed what the jobs numbers were and how devastating it was. The job numbers for May, at first they were marked at 144,000. They got marked down to just 19,000. And for June, it was 147,000, and that got marked down to just 14,000, with an average gain of just 35,000 jobs per month. And with prices continuing to go up, when most Americans don't have like $500 in savings, people can't afford this. The economy is already being held up by bubble gum and tape. So, matter of fact, we just gonna go over to here. We just gonna listen to this, and we just gonna listen to it from the horse's mouth himself, and then I'll pull up some comments that were made. Excuse me. So let me go ahead and just go ahead and pull this up to Twitter real quick so we can hear it from the man himself. And these are his words on CNBC.
Chips and semiconductors, but on pharmaceuticals, we'll be putting a initially small tariff on pharmaceuticals. But in 1 year, President 1.5 years maximum, it's going to go to 150%, and then it's going to go to 250%, because we want pharmaceuticals made in our country. And that's not the CHIPS Act like Biden did, because he didn't know what he was doing, where they gave billions of dollars to companies that had more money than they knew what to do with.
President Trump, can I ask you about?
Yeah, because we don't do that anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like, first and foremost, Biden didn't know what he was doing. They gave billions of dollars. We still give billions of dollars in subsidies to companies and entities that don't need them. Like big oil, for instance. Oil companies are the most profitable organizations on the planet. They don't need billions of dollars in subsidies. It's just free money. We've been giving subsidies to pharmaceutical companies. We've been giving subsidies to Elon Musk. You know what I'm saying? So like, that's nothing new. That hasn't stopped underneath the Trump administration. So now let's go ahead and see what some of these comments were for that before we get into his promise to raise tariffs on India. So here's what some of the comments were. This is from, hold on, did I skip something? Yes, Raphael Warnock. He says, the president promised to lower the cost of prescription drugs. Who will pay for this massive new tax on medication? You will, every time you go to the pharmacy to fill your prescription. Another promise broken. And also, when it comes to pharmaceuticals, Donald Trump, via executive order on day one, raised prescription drug prices on day one. And now we got this going on. So more commentary, pretty much all the same. Everybody pointing out how this is going to raise drug prices for people who need them. And obviously it is. Eric Levitt says, on a gut level, it's still hard to believe that investors have fully priced in the whole, quote, the U.S. is run by an actual madman thing. Because again, it's like, dude, your plan of making everything more expensive for consumers to bring manufacturing back, it's not going to happen. It hasn't happened. There's been no significant change, no significant pivot within how the world economy functions, because you're raising prices on everyday Americans. So here we have Donald Trump. We're going to read this from BBC. Threatening 50% tariffs on India for buying Russian oil. Donald Trump, he's trying to rein Russia in and threatening the whole world that if they don't stop trading with Russia, he's going to put tariffs on everything, which again will just raise prices for American consumers when we're already in a consumer economy and hardly, nobody has any savings. People are drowning in debt, student loan debt, credit card debt, homeowners debt. I mean, it goes on and on. U.S. President Donald Trump has issued an executive order hitting India with an additional 25% tariff over its purchases of Russian oil. That will raise the total tariff of Indian imports to the United States to 50%, among the highest rates imposed by the U.S. The new rate will come into effect in 21 days on August 27th, according to the order. A response from India's foreign ministry on Wednesday said Delhi had already made clear its stance on imports from Russia and reiterated that the tariff is, quote, unfair, unjustified, and unreasonable. It is therefore extremely unfortunate that the U.S. should choose to impose additional tariffs on India for actions that several other countries are also taking in their own national interest. India will take all actions necessary to protect its national interests. Of course they will. So again, it's not just that Donald Trump is raising prices for American consumers. It's also that he's destroying our relationships all over the country, because he really has, just evaporated the United States' ability to carry out a diplomacy effectively. Because let's say we get a great president in 2028. I mean, whatever we get is going to be better than Donald Trump. But, let's whoever we get, the United States is liable to break deals, to walk back on promises in the next administration. And the days of America being the sole superpower of the planet are over. It's done. It's never coming back. Not only is China caught up, but much of the rest of the world has strengthened themselves, innovated and advanced their economies and the way that they carry out their production and industry. So we can't just bully everybody around anymore the same way that we used to. And we can't blow up everybody. So on Wednesday, the White House said in a statement that the Russian Federation's actions in Ukraine pose an ongoing threat to U.S. national security and foreign policy. So, yeah, again, at the end of the day, with this approach of just continuously slapping tariffs on everything, as we've discussed, it's just not going. It will not bring manufacturing back here. And it's only going to continue to deteriorate our relationships with our foreign allies. And China's going to continue to rack up and switch up world trade routes. And there's not much that we can do about it. There's no real, there's too much partisan divide in the federal government. There's way too much corporate corruption. And the American people largely are tapped out of the process. Even if they aren't tapped out, our public education system has greatly hindered people's ability to feel like they can contribute to anything at all. We totally overlook what's happening right in our backyards. And people, for the most part, are just waiting and asking and begging and pleading with their hands out. But nothing's going to change if the public at large doesn't stand up and demand that to be so, and not through protests. I mean, yeah, protests, get out here in the streets, but we got to vote better people in office at every level of government. That's just, there's no getting around that. It's just not. At the end of the day, the people in office are there because we put them there. That's how this works. It's not, we don't live in an autocratic system. We put these people in office. So ultimately, it is our fault what is going on. Sure, we can point the finger at the people with the power, and we should do that. We should hold these people accountable. But Americans, we need to hold ourselves accountable as well, because elections come and go and motherfuckers don't participate. And then we're like, oh, why are they doing this to us? Because we put them there. That's why they're doing this to us.
Hey now, thank you so much for tuning in here at Politics and Paper. If you like what I do and you support my work, go ahead and subscribe. I greatly appreciate it and really helps to support what we do here.